So here we have chapter 8. Chapter 8 is all about simply buying stuff. So as many of these chapters, it's really pretty straightforward. A lot of you know this stuff intuitively, and of course all of you have been buying stuff, but have you been buying it the smartest way? So this chapter is really about kind of, what is the process for buying things. Now, of course, you're buying a candy bar, that's not a big deal. Buying a car, that's a little bit more involved. So typically, the more, if you think about the more something costs, the more time involved should be the case with how much you spend researching it. And it's amazing how I see some people spending a lot of time on like, oh man, I want to buy a new, whatever, TV that's only like $300 and not thinking twice about researching it. I'm sorry, I should say, and spending a lot of time researching it, but then they're like buying a car. Yeah, I think I'll get a Toyota Camry because that's maybe what my parents have, and I'll just buy one. Not think about so much spending a lot of time researching it. So just remember, this is a pretty simple concept right here. The more it costs, the more time you really should research that particular item. Okay? So there's your learning objectives at the top of your page. Go through this pretty quickly. So this is something that we don't typically think about. Daily buying decisions involve a trade-off between current spending and saving for the future. So if you think about it, if I don't buy something now, then it frees up that money to be able to potentially invest it, save it, have it for the future. So that's kind of the trade-off. And there's a lot of things that can impact our decision-making process. So we have to remember that a lot of times for the higher ticket items that we could be paying a higher price over time because we're using credit. That means you're getting a loan for it, you're using a credit card, and you're not making the payments right away. Okay? So we got to remember, I'm just kind of reviewing, emergency fund, 3 to 6 months of expenses. One of the first things you always do. Now, that's a really kind of random thought right in the middle of this, but the reason why I'm saying it now is because we often don't have emergency funds because we're always buying things and maybe we don't have to buy them right away. Maybe they could be somehow down the future. Maybe we don't need those clothes, a new outfit. It's really important to spend the money, not really spend, but save it, put the money into an emergency fund, okay? So sometimes we buy poor quality because we just don't know because we haven't done our research. The rest of this is pretty straightforward. So things that influence our buying, inflation, interest rates, and so on, social factors, personal factors, these are all of these items, issues here, impact how we buy things. Don't really want to spend much time on that. You could go so deep into each one of these that I'm not really going to get into it really for this class. So some wise purchasing strategies. So comparison shopping is considering alternative stores, brands, and prices. So a lot of times we get hung up on we need a certain brand or whatever. I just bought a new car. I think I mentioned this in one of my other videos. It's a used car, and I'll just tell you, it's a Genesis. Never thought about getting a Genesis because I never really heard about it so much. It's a little bit of a higher end Hyundai. And after I did all the research, Consumer Reports, a lot of different things, they're all like, hey, this is a great value for a car. Value meaning you're getting high quality for a lower price. To me, that's really important. And I wouldn't have thought about this car unless I really did some research. Avoid impulse buying. And I'm not trying to say anything bad about my wife, but a lot of times she will buy things, especially maybe she gets depressed, and this is for a lot of people, and I've probably been guilty of it too. If we're having a bad day, hey, I feel better if I buy, might go out and buy something. Some of us go out and eat stuff. Some of us go spend money shopping, whatever, and it ends up being things that you maybe don't necessarily need. And sometimes that's hard to stop doing. Anyway, timing purchases. So if you don't need something right away, you might think about, hey, let's time it so it's on sale. So for example, a lot of appliances go on sale on a lot of the holidays, Labor Day and so on. Um, and so if you're aware of that and you don't need something right now, it's just a better way to, to kind of save. And I'll show you an example of that here in a minute. So sometimes the location of where you buy something can give you a better deal. So sometimes you can find, so think about this. If you want to, we'll go back to a car. So I bought a car like this, bought our truck like this. I bought it from Chicago. A lot of competition in Chicago, and I found it online. I don't remember, it was like eBay or something. And I bought it because it was cheaper buying it from Chicago and getting it shipped, which is a few $100s, to Athens, because it was a better truck, better price than what I could get here in Athens, even with the shipping. Okay? So the location made a difference. And no, I didn't sit in it and whatever, but I paid somebody like $80, a mechanic who would know more than I would, to go out, start the truck, drive it a little bit, take pictures of anything that looked bad, and give me a full report on it. And that would be better than really me going and looking at it, because I've sat in one, I know what they feel like, whatever. So something to think about. So here's a chart, and I know you can't read this, that's fine. But the point is, it's got all these months up here, and this says, okay, when are the best times to buy things? And, so for example, I don't know, here in July, furniture, for example. It says furniture in July. I don't know that. Patio furniture in September, because things are going on sale because people are not using them much anymore. And paint in July. So anyway, the point is, if you don't need something, so paint, you pretty much want to paint a room, you're not going to wait for a few months. But there are some big ticket items maybe you don't necessarily need right away. So think about timing. Brand comparison. So one time it was like in the cluster many years ago, we used to go visit companies, and one of the companies we visited was a cereal manufacturer, and I think it was up by Lancaster, Ohio. And we were in this plant, and they had like all the it was like cornflakes going through, and so here comes Kellogg's cornflakes going through, and here goes Kroger's cornflakes going through. And the guy was telling us basically, these are the same cornflakes. And then they showed the sprayers where they spray on the vitamins. And so basically, if you look at the box of a Kroger's brand cornflakes and like Kellogg's cornflakes, they're like almost identical. But you're paying for the Kellogg's, you're often paying for all the advertising. Okay? And so the point is, there was going to be some, and I think I have a slide later on about kind of comparison surveys about this, but a lot of times the store brand, Kroger's, Walmart, whatever, is just as good. If you were doing a blind taste test, which is what I would encourage you to do, because you can often buy items for, sometimes half as much, because you're not paying for that name, okay? You're not paying for that brand. So just something to think about. Okay? So I love this magazine, Consumer Reports, and of course you have to pay for a subscription. If you pay for Apple News, you get it included. And of course you can go buy it in a newsstand or whatever, but especially for top ticket items. And one of the reasons I like it is that there's no advertising in it. So they are really, as far as I know, an independent review site. What you have to worry about is when you go online and you look at reviews, as you've all probably know, there's a lot of reviews that are bogus. The company pays people to write them, so you never know if you're truly getting good reviews. Also, there are companies, so let's just say I'm a calculator manufacturer, okay? I could buy the domain site for calculatorreviews.com, and I could put on there reviews for 5 different calculators, and my calculator is going to be the #1 option, and I can give pretty decent reviews for the other ones, but mine's going to be #1. And so it looks like an independent review company, but it's really owned by this manufacturer. So you have to be really careful about some of the review sites. Okay, so that's why I like this particular company, especially for cars. And they have all kinds of information about cars, and you can get it free through the OU library if you want. But here's, for example, um, here's how the brands stack up in terms of, I think, like reliability. You see Lexus is number one there. Genesis, that's what I just got, was kind of right there. So anyway, there's where they're all ranked. So here's the middle of the pack, and here's the bottom third. Yes, Mercedes-Benz down there at the bottom. Cadillac, really bad. Pretty interesting. Would have never thought that. Okay. So anyway, that's consumer reviews. Think about if you're buying a car, you want to be looking at the reviews. And there's other websites, Edmunds and so on. Okay. The number one thing when you're going, especially grocery shopping, is to do unit pricing. Meaning, okay, so I can get hand sanitizer this size, or I can get hand sanitizer this size. Of course, the bigger one's going to cost more, but on a per ounce basis, really how much of a deal are you getting? Okay, so a lot of times if you look, at the label or the price underneath there, depending on what store you get, it'll break it down on a per ounce basis. And you can determine then, is it really worth it to go to like Costco and get the 5-gallon drum of hand sanitizer? Or are you really saving just a few pennies an ounce? Is it really worth it? Okay, so unit pricing, extremely important. Okay? And of course, a lot of you already know about rebates. When you buy something, you can turn it in and get money back. So this is convenience, and ready-to-use product may mean higher prices. Large packages are usually the best buy. Not always. Not always. Sale prices may not always mean you're saving money. So there's a lot of companies, as you probably already know, they're like perpetually on sale. Like you would never pay full retail because that's just how they market it. Our brain is wired to want a sale, a discount. And if we see a sale, we think, great, I'm saving money, therefore I'm justified in buying this purchase. My wife often comes home and said, look, I just saved $30. Great, show me the checking account where it went up $30. No, it went down 50 because she bought something. Okay? But that's how our minds work. I mean, I've done that too. Once again, not picking on my wife, but anyway. So in terms of what we have here, wise purchasing strategies. Whenever we think about buying, or you think about buying something that's going to cost a considerable amount of money, consider making a matrix. Now, if you've had the cluster, you've probably done something similar to this. So I think this is great, especially like, for example, you're buying a car. What are the criteria that are so important to you? So for some people, 4-wheel drive is critical. Others don't. You're driving in Columbus and flat, maybe hardly ever snows, which it does, of course. So how important is that to you? How much, of course, are you willing to pay? Are you big on, gas mileage? Are you going to be driving a lot? If you're just going to be driving 10 minutes back and forth to work, you maybe don't care that much about it. Okay? So you could then also weight these. Okay, you could weight these and say, okay, this one out of scale, out of 10, this one's really important, engine power, maybe a little bit important. Okay, you could kind of rate them all, and then you could do a weighted average. So then you simply rank each vehicle, you add them all up, and this just helps you. Not that you have to go with that. It just kind of helps you make that decision a little bit easier. You try to objectify everything as opposed to being, somewhat subjective and, oh, I like this car or whatever. And there's a lot of other things in here that could go, comfort of the ride. How big's the back seat? Do you need a back seat? Et cetera, et cetera. Okay? So a matrix is really good. Great for if you're because I know a lot of you are thinking about getting an apartment and getting a job. So this could be for a job and an apartment. So imagine like in a job, and we're getting off the topic of purchasing, but your job could be, what are the benefits? What's the location? How far is it away from my home? What is the culture of the company? Of course, what is the salary? What is the pay? What is the prospects for future employment? Moving up the ladder. There's a lot of different things, and I know a lot of you are like, hey, I hope I get a job offer. And that's fine, but once you get in the door and you start working, you're going to have more offers, more opportunities, once you start working. It's hard to get that job when you don't have a job. People are more interested in hiring you if you have a job. Here's another example of Consumer Reports, and this is like here of their TVs. So they kind of rank them on a scale. I think out of 100, they tell you the price, and then each one of these, and I don't have it up here at the top. You know, this might be the color, the sound, the picture, the HD, whatever. Okay, and so green, darker green is better, and so on. And they give you like, here's a really good buy because look, this is only $330, so that's, you know, these are really good deals. This might be ranked the highest, but considering the price, maybe still not the best deal, but that's how they mark them. So anyway, love Consumer Reports, good thing to consider. So going back to the unit pricing, here's an example on the bottom of your sheet. I mean, that couldn't be more simple. I just want to I'll give you a little quiz here. This isn't on your page here. So a lot of you, of course, order pizza. So you're sometimes thinking, okay, we could, you know, the company sells a 10, a 14, 16, 20, 24, whatever, and you got whatever number of people to feed, and you're thinking, okay, we could get 2 10-inch pizzas, and that is about the same as 1 blank pizza. So I'm going to give you a minute here to try to figure out what that is. So this is a good geometry quiz, okay? So I'm going to hit pause for me and let you try to figure it out. Of course, you'll have to pause it yourself if you want to do it. Okay, did you figure it out? Okay, raise your hand if you said 14, 16, 20, 24. No, I was kidding. You don't have to raise your hand. Okay, so here's how we did it. You guys remember the formula pi r squared is how we figure out the area of a circle. So pi is another word for pizza. Pizza pie. Okay, we call pizzas pie. So that's how we got this formula. No, I'm just kidding. Pi, of course, is, you know, the 3.14678328946. No, I'm just kidding. I have no idea. 3.14 is all I know. Anyway, so when we're comparing, pi is the same, so we can just take that out. So the easiest way to figure out kind of area for a pizza is you take the radius. Okay, so 10 inches, that's 10 inches across. The radius is like halfway, so that's simply 5 inches. Square that, and we get a unit of 25, okay? 25 is all we care for. And then you got to multiply by pi, but we don't, pi is the same. So we want to know what 2 of these are. So that's times 2, and that's about an area of 50. So we take the 14 inch, 14 divided by 2 to get our radius. It gives us 7. 7 squared is 49. So 49 is basically the same as 50. So 2 10-inch pieces is about the same as 1 14-inch pizza. Okay? About the same. And so if you ever look, here is a 10-inch pizza. This is from Dr. Pizza, which is down on Union Street, which I think they're closed now. Anyway, it's $7, and 14-inch is $13. So if we're assuming that 2 10s is about the same as a 14, 2 times 7 is 14, then you can say, hey, buying the 14 is a little bit better deal. Now, of course, the pizza company knows they're the same size, but they save a little bit on the box, a little bit on the handling and so on, so they're willing to kind of give you a kind of quantity discount, okay? All right, warranties. So hopefully you know what a warranty is. Basically, you know, if something goes wrong with your product, a lot of us don't use those. And a lot of times, by the way, if you use a credit card, one of the advantages of a credit card is there are warranties beyond what the company would offer that your credit card has for you. So always remember that. If you're going to buy something really big, sometimes it benefits to use a credit card. So a lot of used cars are simply sold as is. If I was buying a used car, which I always buy a used car, I always try to buy them from a dealer and try to get at least like a 30-day warranty. Okay, a lot of times they'll give you more depending on how new the car is. But if you got 30 days, at least you know for the next month, you know, if something's really, really wrong, it's going to probably happen within the next month. Okay, so that's really critical for used cars. New cars, you're always going to get a warranty with a new car. That's not a big deal. Service contracts are a little bit different than warranties. In case if you have a cell phone, which I know you all do, you probably get annoying robocalls about service contracts. That's like the biggest annoyance there are. But anyway, you can pay a fee. Usually they're, from what I understand, they're not probably worth it. Probably end up paying more. than what your benefit is. Okay, so we're going to talk about buying cars again. So this really goes to really any major consumer purchases. We're just kind of talking about cars for an example. So pre-shopping activities. What's your problem identification? So why do you need a car? Well, I need to get to work. So that's maybe that's your problem, I guess. And so the information gathering could be talk to somebody else that has a car like what you're thinking about or has had one, whatever. Business organizations, that's not really help you buy a car. These are just all places that you might have gotten some information. Consumer reports, that's what I just mentioned. Sometimes government agencies can provide information. Online sources like Auto Trader, you can find what's being sold for how much. Always ask yourself, can I delay the purchase or do without the item? So do you really need that car? If you're living in the city, maybe you can take the bus, walk, bike, whatever, and just use Uber for further things. How much is that going to save you from your car payments? You can do a lot of Ubering for what all your car payments may cost you. And then you can read some of those other things. So can you rent the item instead of buying it? So you're not going to really have that with cars, other than you can lease a car instead of buying it. We'll talk about that a little bit later. And comparing used vehicles, you can use CarMax. There's all kinds of places. That's just one example. I don't need to put that on there. So in terms of if you wanted to buy a used car, I know this information is not on your sheet, but if some of you are thinking about buying a used car, you can pull up this PowerPoint. And this is if you're going to a used car dealer and you're wanting to check it out yourself, which you can, once again, you can pay somebody. If you're really interested in a car, you can pay a mechanic, go online. There's services, cost you like $50 to $100 that will come out and basically do all of this that I'm showing you here. But this is a lot of simple stuff that you could do to try to ensure that the car is of decent shape, okay? Especially if you're buying from an individual. So leasing, as I said, do you want to rent a car, which that's like leasing a car. So leasing is a contract where you're going to make monthly payments. Advantages are that you typically will have lower payments and that your down payment will often be smaller than if you're buying. So a lot of times it's easier to get into a car, and it's easier, therefore, to get a more expensive vehicle. So people that do leasing a lot of times like to really have a brand new car, maybe a fancier car than they normally could afford. The problem is, the drawbacks is you have no ownership, which is okay for some people. And a lot of times you are limited to about 12 to 15,000 miles per year. And once again, it just depends on your situation. If you drive a lot, typically not going to be worth it. In my experience, everything I've read, for most people, it makes more sense to try to buy a car than to lease a car. And make sure you're aware of the residual value. So that's a term they use in leasing. It just means that if you're going to lease a car, typically a brand new car, what are you going to get at the end? What's left over? Residual. So that's like the price they're going to give you at the end of typically 3 years. And that's, so you $50,000 car, they're going to give you $30,000 after 3 years. So it's cost you $20,000 basically for 3 years. So it can add up, and you don't have any car, any ownership, any equity at the end. Okay? So this isn't in your book. It's a graph I found that I think it's pretty much true. So this is comparing a new car, and here's the price, here's time. So we buy it brand new, the price is going to be really high. What happens is over time it depreciates, it goes down, and of course as the longer time goes, the more the repair cost goes. So the green is the repair cost, the red is depreciation. So cars depreciate a lot at the very beginning. The first 3 to 5 years is tremendous, and then you can see that it starts to kind of level out here. So what a lot of people would say that are in the car business say kind of the sweet spot is between 2 and 8 years, and I think that's awful broad. For me, I'd say it's kind of more in this area. My personal preference is kind of right around the 3-year mark, especially if you can get it a little bit before 3 years, because then you have the warranty of the car manufacturer, because most of them will give you like a 3-year warranty on a brand new car. So it's still in really good shape. Chances of something bad happening are really pretty small. And then you've got all this depreciation right there that's happened. Okay? So a lot of times you can buy a 3-year-old car for maybe close to half of what it would have cost new. Okay? So that's my preferred option, but there's not going to be any questions on the quiz about that. So this isn't on your sheet, it's in your book. And it just goes through a really simple example. And there's a lot of online calculators about kind of purchasing a vehicle versus leasing a vehicle. And so you can see here kind of that you end up with the total cost to buy, total cost to lease about the same for this particular example. They're just, if you want to pause it a second and just kind of look over both of those. There are more involved ones, but for this class, that's kind of really all we're just going to look at here is kind of what is the down payment, monthly payments, how much you're going to get, how much is the car worth at the end. This estimated value at the end can really vary a lot. So that one's hard to estimate, depends on the wear and tear of your car, but it's a little bit easier on the lease because of that residual value. You know what the car is going to be worth, and that's really kind of factoring in this. So there's no guesswork really on the leasing cost. This one is a big question mark. So this number could be a lot higher or a lot lower, just depending on what's going on in the market. So in terms of determining how much you should pay, just do your research, especially with cars. And to me, the best way to figure out what something is worth is just going on, like Kelley Blue Book, Edmunds, Auto Trader, Cars.com, eBay, and just see what is the asking price. And you'll see a lot of times you got to make sure you're doing apples to apples, different cars, whatever. I mean, same car, make sure they have same options. Just see what they're going for, and that's going to be your best way to determine what something is worth or selling for. So this is a term all of you should know, at least those of you that are finance majors. It's upside down, or often referred to as underwater. And this could happen with your house, or in this case we're talking about your car. It just means that upside down means you owe more than what the asset is worth. So here we have a vehicle that's $26,000. It's purchased with a loan of $18,000, and then the vehicle goes down in value, depreciation, and let's say you wanted to sell it, and you sell it, you might only get $12,000, but you owe $14,000. So this is your debt, and this is your assets, which means your equity is going to be minus $2,000. If your equity is minus, it means you are upside down. That's all that means. Okay? So to avoid this situation, you can either make a larger down payment or have a shorter term loan. So usually try to make it 5 years or less. There are some people that will go 7 years, not a good thing to do. So try to keep it 5 years, and then you shouldn't have that. Sometimes you buy a car and it's what we call a lemon, meaning it's like a dud, and there's just so many things that go wrong on it. My neighbor a few years ago bought, I think it was a Nissan Pathfinder, and she had so many things go wrong. It was like every 3 months she had it in the mechanic doing something. So I looked up on Consumer Reports. So Consumer Reports has like a page in the magazine whenever they do the car issue, and they say, don't buy these cars during these years. And sure enough, the Nissan Pathfinder for her year, because it's not every year, it's just like certain years, they just for some reason have more problems than other years. And her car was on there. And I was just thinking, if she would have just known to check that one list before she bought it, that could have saved her a lot of headaches. Now, granted, you can have a lot of problems with any car, but if it happens over and over again, it's going to make that list. So check that out before you ever buy a car. If you do buy a car and it's considered a lemon, meaning it's really bad, like right after you buy it, there are certain laws that can kind of protect you, and get your money back from whoever sold it from you. Oops, sorry. So in terms of, basically operating costs for automobiles, as I mentioned before, depreciation is by far the biggest cost, meaning it just simply goes down in value because it's being used. Of course, you all know that regular care minimizes major repairs. Regular care is, for the most part, getting your oil changed, and that's the main thing all of you should be doing every 7,000 miles or so. Okay, so this slide here, this is of course on your page there on page 3. I just want you to take a moment, put me on pause, and just read through those, because a lot of you have maybe already experienced these, or you probably will someday. So it's just kind of a fun little quiz here. I want you to take this and then put me on pause, and then I'll give you the answers here. Okay, so real quick, number 1 is yes. A lot of times though, if you buy a stereo in this case and they mark it down, you can ask for the sale price. So remember that if you buy something and then it gets marked down and you realize it like the next day or two, a lot of times a store will honor that and credit you the difference. If you get something unsolicited, no, you shouldn't have to pay for that. Your son gets, boy, whatever, girl gets taken to the hospital, yes, you would be responsible in that case. Number 4, if you take the shirt back and they say no cash refunds, well, that's their policy, and you should know that when you bought it. So yes, this is legal. The key for the next one for the motorcycle is that it was used improperly. So that would be no, because you didn't use it the way you were supposed to. And then the last one, it depends on the state. Your book is going to tell you no. Do they have to honor if the store marked it down incorrectly and you took advantage of that? Some will continue to honor it just because they don't want to get any bad publicity of it. But from what I understand, there are some states that say no, they have to honor it. So it depends on where you're at, I guess. Okay. So last thing is in terms of, you want to complain because whatever, it's not working. A lot of times you take it back to where you purchased it. It's the number one thing. You can call the company. You can call the BBB, Better Business Bureau. Sometimes they will help you. These are 2 words I do want you to understand: mediation and arbitration. Okay? So mediation, the biggest thing here is to understand between the 2. Notice it says third party. You have somebody else, an independent party, who kind of helps you negotiate. Well, look, this is what happened, and they said, well, we're not going to give you money back, or we'll give you some. This is non-binding, meaning that this is what they're suggesting you guys do, trying to work out an agreement. Arbitration it's like a legal thing saying this is what happens. Okay, so it's just a minor thing between those 2. So you're trying to use a third party just to try to work things out. And then the last thing is try to do business just with reputable companies. Don't sign anything you don't understand. Be cautious of exaggerated offers. So often you see this on the news that people are like, well, I was told I would get this free, or I'm getting a big discount. Look, if it's too good to be true, it's probably not worth it. So this is a statement I'm gonna kind of mention a number of times here. So like when you're thinking about maybe buying something, good questions, and this pertains to so many things in life, equals good decisions. Okay? Good questions equal good decisions. Means if you're in an interview, means if you're dating somebody, if you're thinking about buying a car, if you're thinking about, whatever, so many different things. If you can ask good questions, you are going to make better decisions, good decisions, okay? Good questions, good decisions. That is it for this chapter.